Hello and welcome to Rolling with Two. I'm Will, and with me as always is the ghostess who would steal your hostess,
Sarah.
And today we're doing a two-player perspective and accessibility for Ghost Love Candy 2. Sarah, tell us a bit about this game.
All right. Players play as ghosts that haunt trick-or-treaters to get their candy. But they have to do so carefully or they'll end up scaring the kids, earning negative points. At the end of the game, whoever has the most points from their stash of candy wins. Okay, so how does the game change for two players?
So there is no bot, despite how festively dressed he is. It has different player count setups for every player count. And that'll count the kids and the candy that you draw. The biggest change for a two-player, though, is that you're playing two hands of cards.
Yes.
And all of this is located in the back of the book to easy reference what needs to be changed. Beyond that, the two hands are just the biggest thing that's different for two players versus any other player count.
Right. That's true. So let's go over some of the issues. Having those two sets of cards is a little bit more complex. You have to try to keep track, because how you play is you're picking one card from each hand.
Yeah, you can't mix them up.
You can't mix them up. You can't be like, oh, well, I have a 7 and 8 in this hand and I want to use those. No, you have to use just the 7 and hope you left the 8 or vice versa. But you can only use one card from each hand when you're playing for the round. So you kind of have to also be careful to make sure, like, balancing between the two so they don't well, I just use both my 5s and I don't have a 5 option when I need it kind of thing.
Right.
Also, with a two-player game, because there are some abilities that target opponents in a two-player game, you only have one other opponent. So that can feel both aggressive and a little frustrating if, say, oh, I have an opportunity to steal a candy from Will. Well, he doesn't have what I want, or something like that.
Now, the plus side is that because I'm playing multiple hands, chances are that might not always be the case.
That's true.
Because I am getting more candy than I would normally in, say, a 3 or 4 player game.
That is very true. So it's not like the biggest issue, but it is something that is different than other player counts.
Right.
So, but what it does well, using those that two set of cards really provides a lot of challenge and tactical choices.
Yeah, you have a lot more choices because it's not just I'm picking one kid. No, I'm picking 2 kids. Or I'm picking the same kid twice because I want to see that ability go off. And because you're doing 2 hands, it's playing at the same speed as a 4-player game. So therefore, the kids will be moving in and out with greater rapidity than most 2-player games.
Right. That row of kids is not going to stay stagnant, which, again, can be a good or bad thing if you're like, wait, I want to be able to use that ability more, but we'll just put both his cards on that kid. So there it goes, So it is a really good thing that you don't have to worry about it getting too stale.
Yes. Also, with 2 hands of cards playing, it means, well, you're going to get higher scores.
Yes.
And that actually feels very rewarding in a 2-player game. In fact, you might go to a 3 and 4-player game and I'm not getting as much candy as I remember in a 2-player game. I'm not sure I like this. So you might get actually spoiled in a 2-player game.
It's true. There's a few games that do that where they add a little bit more to a 2-player game so it feels a bit bigger and better, and then you go to multiplayer and you're like, oh, geez, I can barely do anything.
Yeah, I will say, don't get this confused with the Steve Jackson release of Ghost Love Candy. The important thing there is they didn't include 2-player rules in the Steve Jackson games. This one, they did. And we got a lot more kids.
Yes. And I'm really happy with how they changed the rules. So, long story short, we play tested the original version of Ghost Love Candy. And that original version did have a 2-player variant and was going to be in the first printing. Some things happened, and Steve Jackson picked it up, and for a lot of reasons I can understand, they took the 2-player variant out. It wasn't the best. This puts it back in, but it's completely changed and it works a lot better than what it did before. So this is good. So I guess the other thing then is that 2 players, it plays quickly. Even though you're playing 4 cards total, it feels faster, and it could just be because you have a plan for what you want to do with those 2 cards, so you can execute that faster than 4 individual people who would, have to play 1 card after another.
Yeah, it's 2 people making up their mind,
Yes.
not 4 people trying to make up their mind.
minds. Yes, especially if somebody does something that throws you off guard. All right, so accessibility. So there really aren't a lot of problems. There's some contrast issues with some of the candy icons. Just the icon is not as good against the background with the difference in brightness or lightness. The licorice and the chocolate are probably the worst, but I will say some people might have problems with the lollipop only because it has a red outline for the lollipop and the rest of it's all red. I think there's a little bit of white for the stick, but for those who might have red-black colorblind issues, if you see a token, you just see a little white stick.
A white dash.
A white dash. That's a lollipop.
That's a lollipop.
That's a lollipop. But generally speaking, they're pretty good.
The cards.
Yes. The complexity.
Yes, there is complexity on these cards because there are a lot more kids in this version of the game.
100 of them.
100 of them. They can feel a little confusing to some players. Fortunately, the game takes this into consideration and says if you want an easier game, just use the kids numbers 1 through 30, and that will have easier, simpler to understand rules.
Yes.
So those who want a deeper experience, you still have 70 cards to draw from to give you what you want.
Yeah, and I think on their own, each kid ability is not that bad, but the interaction between them is what can really get complex.
Yeah, because some will stop you from scaring kids to the left and right. Some will rearrange candies. Some will do all sorts of weird combos that only show themselves once the game starts going and you see where the kids land.
Yep. But thankfully, those are the only issues. The good things are the kid cards are tarot size, so they're much larger. I still found that when a kid had a lot of text, I'd have to pick it up and read it, but it's still better than it being at a poker size card, so that's really nice there. The numbers and the text are really easy to read. And I mean, the great thing is it's all open information, so if you're really having trouble with something.
Yeah, and the only thing that's kept secret are the cards in your hand, but they're only numbered 1 through 9.
Right.
So that seems fairly reasonable to keep organized, especially as you play them, your hand only gets smaller, so there's fewer numbers
cards,
to keep track of.
Right, and then lastly, the bag that comes with the game for all the tokens is, I would say, a pretty decent size bag. I mean, if you have large hands, you're probably going to have problems with any bag included in a game.
I'm pretty sure if you have problems with reaching into bags, you know who you are.
Yeah.
And you probably have a bag set aside that for whatever game you're playing, you grab that and then use that for your...
Right.
Crown Royal is very popular.
Oh, yeah, Crown Royal is very popular. But I will have to say... for the bag that is included is really good. I have definitely seen smaller bags included in games for drawing things out. So
yes.
All right, conclusion.
So for 2 players, would you recommend this?
I would. There is a bit more complexity with the 2 hands, but I really enjoyed the challenge and the tactical nature of trying to figure out, okay, can I do my cards in the right order before his, or do I only need to really do 1 card before his? So there was really a lot more to consider, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, same. From my early experiences with this game to where it is now, it's now a really solid 2-player game.
Yes.
So definitely would recommend. Accessibility.
Yes, like I said, there's only a few of the tokens that might be difficult. But the great thing is it's all open information, so if you are having trouble identifying any of the icons, someone else at the table will be able to, help you out with that.
Yeah, I noticed that I had perfectly no problems. I think Sarah had the cognitive issues, like, okay, it does...
That's true. Some of the abilities and how they interacted, I was like, oh, that seems good. And then I'm like, oh, wait, that's not so good. So, yeah, I think for me, accessibility-wise, it was a little bit. But if I ever really have a problem with it, we could fish out numbers 1 through 30 and just play with those and see how that is.
All right. Well, that will do it for us here at Rolling with 2. And Sarah, if you were haunting a kid, what candy would you steal?
Oh, I love Twizzlers. I think I would steal Twizzlers.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd go for the chocolate.
You go for the Reese's peanut butter cups.
That too.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the Twizzler sign at the back.
Yay, me.
All right. That's it for us. And we've been Rolling with Two.
And remember, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can reach out to us on the various social media platforms at
Rolling with Two. That's TWO. We are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And on YouTube, please like and subscribe.
And if you have time, check out the other content Nanaman has found for you, because remember, he's rolling with you.